Welcome back. Today we're doing something a little different. We're not talking about wars, we're not talking about empires falling. We're talking about something far more personal, far more revealing, and honestly, far more chaotic than any battlefield. We're talking about what ancient humans wore. Because here's the thing nobody tells you about ancient civilizations. Clothing wasn't just clothing. It was power. It was religion. It was politics. It was status. It was survival. And sometimes it was just deeply, deeply questionable life choices. From the wool-wrapped Sumerians to the toga-obsessed Romans, from divine Egyptian linen to the heavily layered Japanese silk nobles, every civilization had its own version of fashion, and every single one of them believed with full confidence that they were doing it right. So today, we're going on a world tour across time. We're judging their outfits, we're respecting their hustle, and we're asking one very important question. Did ancient humans actually dress better than us, or were they just really, really committed to looking strange? Let's find out.
Let's start at the very beginning, and I mean the very beginning. The Sumerians, Mesopotamia, around 2500 BC, the oldest civilization in Asia. The people who basically invented writing, cities, and agriculture. And their fashion? Equally groundbreaking, equally furry. The Sumerian signature garment was called the konakis. And what was it exactly? Imagine a skirt. Now imagine that skirt is made of layered tufts of sheep wool, with the fleece pointing outward, creating a texture that looked somewhere between a cloud and a very confused sheep. That was it. That was the look. Men wore it, women wore it, the king wore a long one, the priests wore it below the knee, and the servants got a shortened version that showed the left leg. Because even in 2500 BC, the length of your skirt told people exactly where you stood in society. Women had more options. The female luxury dress was a tunic embroidered at the bottom with fringes that widened on the floor, like a built-in red carpet that followed you everywhere. On top, a rolled shawl with metallic embroidery was placed. Short sleeves at the elbow, neckline held by a splint. This was designer, Sumerian style. Now, the hair. Men wore thick, squared beards with tight curls and sideburns. Hair was tied with a ribbon across the forehead. The elegant classes braided their hair around the ears and wore turbans made from rolled staves. And the soldiers? They wore copper helmets, decorated with monkeys' hair and ears, because nothing says "fear me" like a helmet with a little monkey on it. Jewelry included crescent-shaped gold earrings, pearl-adorned collars, leaf-shaped pins, and combs decorated with flowers and leaves worn on top of wigs. These people were 4,500 years ago, wearing embroidered metallic shawls and pearl collars, walking into court with a sheep skirt and a monkey helmet. And they had more confidence than anyone you've ever met.
Fast forward a bit. Same region, different energy. The Babylonians and Assyrians. Two civilizations, same neighborhood, completely different fashion philosophies. In Babylon, the textile industry was booming. Wool weavers, linen craftsmen, this was an economy built on fabric. The standard male look was a long threaded tunic reaching to the feet. On top of that, another woolen tunic, and on top of that, a small white layer. 3 layers, in Mesopotamian heat, because comfort was clearly not the goal. The Assyrians took a different approach. Their wool came in green, red, dark purple, blue, and brown. Luxury dress was specifically green with red and yellow borders and fringed trim. Their tunics were long, fringed, braided, and embroidered with geometric flowers, and the royal mantle was spiraled around the entire body, passed over the left shoulder, rolled up at the hip as a skirt, and adorned with fringe embroidery. Worn also in religious ceremonies, because nothing says I am close to God like fabric spiraled around your entire body. High court dignitaries wore purple girdles crossing the chest, 2 stripes, crisscrossing. This was literally the ancient equivalent of a badge that said, "Do not mess with me." Now, the kings of Babylon had a very specific headdress situation. They cut a scroll into a conical shape with a protruding point and left 2 strips hanging down to the waist. Alternatively, a tall cylindrical tiara with a row of metallic feathers. The royalty also had an option of a turban decorated with a tiara with horns, specifically for the pontiff position. Jewelry? Long walnut-shaped earrings, cross-shaped earrings, multi-row necklaces with talismanic elements, geometric bracelets, gold ribbons in the hair. The king's hair was literally threaded with gold nets, and women in both Babylon and Assyria, when they left the house, they were required by law to wear a veil. Free women, married women, it didn't matter. The veil was mandatory. These were civilizations where your outfit was your resume, your rank, your religion, and your legal status, all at the same time.
Now we move to the Persians, 6th century BC. And these people understood something the others didn't quite grasp yet. Elegance. The Persians' signature garment was the kandis, a long-sleeved tunic made from wool or imported silk from the Far East, adapted to the body, wide, flowing sleeves. The great king wore it in purple, because of course he did. But here's where Persia genuinely changed the world of fashion forever. They invented embroidery as an applied technique. That's right, the intricate, beautiful, detailed needlework you see on fabrics across the world, Persia introduced it. It was later brought to Europe through the Crusades, meaning every embroidered wedding dress, every decorative tablecloth, every embroidered jacket you've ever seen traces back to ancient Persia. They also introduced anatomically shaped shoes, flexible yellow leather tied at the ankles with straps and buttons. This was the first time in recorded history that footwear was actually designed to fit the shape of a human foot. Before this, people were essentially wearing shaped leather tied to their feet and calling it a day. And, perhaps most importantly, the Persians introduced underwear, the very first recorded use of undergarments in human history. Men had long, curly hair and full, carefully groomed beards. Nobles literally dusted themselves with gold dust. Kings wore tiaras and mitres. A white cotton cloth was wrapped around the head and neck as everyday wear. The Persian aura was composed, luxurious, and quietly intimidating, like someone who has never had to raise their voice because their entire outfit already makes the statement for them.
And now, the civilization everyone secretly wishes they could have lived in. Ancient Egypt. Let's set the scene. The climate is warm and dry. Life is lived outdoors. And in this environment, the Egyptians made a very specific, very deliberate choice. White linen. Only white linen. Always white linen. Wool considered impure. Animal fibers were taboo. Priests had to wear white linen, no exceptions, because the gods deserved the good fabric. Common men wore the shenty, a linen skirt wound at the waist with a leather belt. During the New Kingdom, around 1425 BC, they added a light tunic or sleeveless shirt. Women? The feminine dress remained essentially the same for nearly 3,000 years. A long, tight one-piece dress fastened with 2 shoulder straps, sometimes wide enough to cover the breasts. On top, a short shoulder cloak. Sometimes the fabric was sheer muslin, sometimes painted and dyed with motifs mimicking the wings of Isis. Because if you're going to dress, you might as well dress like a goddess. The Nemes headdress, a striped blue and yellow square canvas adjusted at the forehead with side drapes, was royal. The usek collar of gold and turquoise sat heavy across the chest, paired with gold bracelets. Eyes were lined with dark kohl. Wigs of straight black hair covered shaved heads, shaved for hygiene. And the sandals. Reed and vegetable fiber for commoners. Braided leather with upturned tips for royalty. The sandal-bearer of the pharaoh was one of the most powerful administrative roles in the entire country. This person managed archives, arranged travel, handled the pharaoh's audience requests, all because they were trusted with the royal footwear. Ordinary people walked barefoot, and when they had to go somewhere, they carried their sandals in their hands or tied to a stick, and only put them on when they arrived at the destination. Because why dirty good sandals on the road? Honestly, respect.
From the divine to the philosophical. Ancient Greece. A civilization so confident in their intelligence that they decided their clothing should match their mindset. Simple, elegant, and requiring absolutely zero effort to put on. The chiton. A large rectangle of woolen cloth. You wrap it around your body, pin it at the shoulders with bronze brooches called fibulae, tie a belt at the waist, and done. That's the outfit. That's the whole outfit. No cutting, minimal sewing, no fittings required. Men's chitons were wider. Women's were made of finer cloth. Women also wore the Doric peplos, another simple woven rectangle draped, pinned at the shoulders with the excess fabric folding upward. On top of all this, both men and women threw on the himaiton, a large mantle wrapped around the torso, passed under one arm, pinned at the opposite shoulder, with excess cloth falling naturally. The whole Greek wardrobe was essentially creative origami with fabric. Sandals of wrought leather for everyone. Soldiers and hunters got boots. Men's hats came in multiple varieties: truncated, small-winged, extended truncated. Women wore handkerchiefs on their heads arranged in a specific double-wrap style. Hair was carefully styled. Women wore it parted in the middle, wavy, pulled back with ribbons, diadems, or strings of beads. Men kept it short. Long hair was considered effeminate, acceptable only for children, the elderly, or the very young. Some Greeks were so obsessed with achieving blonde hair that they washed it repeatedly with yellow flower extracts or special ointments. Because being Greek wasn't enough, you had to be a blonde Greek.
And then there was Rome. Same region as Greece, similar features, completely different energy. If Greeks dressed to think, Romans dressed to rule. The toga, 5.5 meters long, 3.5 meters wide, made of wool, draped around the body in a very specific, very complicated arrangement that required, and this is real, the assistance of a slave to put on correctly every single morning. And it was reserved only for Roman citizens, not slaves, not foreigners, citizens. The toga was literally proof of your legal status wrapped around your body and worn in public every day. The purple stripe along the border meant elite status. A fully purple toga, that was the emperor. Under the toga, the basic tunic, short sleeves worn to the knee at first, eventually extended to the ankle, belted at the waist with a sash that doubled as a pocket for valuables. Very practical, very Roman. Outer garments included the lacerna, a rectangular wool cloak with rounded ends, fastened at the neck with a clasp and sometimes fitted with a removable hood. Soldiers wore the sagum, a blanket-like red wool cloak. Peasants wore the panula for rain protection. Women wore the stola, ankle-length, wide-sleeved, fastened with locks and belted at 2 points, under the chest with a sacunulum and at the hip with a succincta. Underneath, a loose, sleeveless subucula and a fabric bodice called a strophium. The final outer layer was the palla, a mantle placed over everything. No pins, no buttons, no needles. Just draped. Perfectly. Every time. Women's colors? Deep blue, yellow, red, sea green, light pink, imported cotton and silk from India. Roman women were not dressing in white linen tunics. Roman women were wearing the ancient world's closest thing to a couture wardrobe. Hair for men, short, combed forward. Baldness was considered a deformity. Bald men wore wigs or glued fake hair directly to bald spots. Slaves wore long hair and didn't shave, visible proof of their status. Freed slaves shaved their heads and wore a wool cap to show they were free. Even haircuts in Rome were political. Women's hair evolved from a simple center-parted ponytail to elaborate curled, rolled, and stacked styles with dense fringes because Roman women had opinions and their hair reflected every single one of them.
Let's move east. Ancient India, a civilization so culturally rich that several civilizations coexisted within it simultaneously. The dhoti, a wrapped cotton skirt, was the foundation for men. On top, a draped mantle over one shoulder. Women wore the sari, a long cloth of rich silk forming beautiful folds that surrounded the head, covered the chest, descended to the hips and waist. Underneath, a short fitted bodice fastened at the back. Jewelry was not optional. Gold necklaces, bangles, earrings, hair ornaments, these were as essential as the fabric itself. The overall vibe was quietly wealthy, elegant without trying to intimidate, dressed with intention, not aggression. Like someone who knows exactly how rich they are and feels absolutely no need to prove it. Ancient Arabia. Dressed for survival first, elegance second, but they somehow achieved both. The kameez shirt over wide sherwal breeches, the Serb outer robe, broad and vaporous, covering everything, the imama turban wrapping the head and neck in white cotton, leather sandals from tanned and camel hide. Everything breathed, everything moved, everything protected against desert heat while still looking dignified. And the fashion itself was described as fickle, constantly changing in fabric delicacy, ornamentation, beard styles, hairstyles, footwear, and jewelry. These were people who lived in one of the harshest environments on Earth and still found time to keep up with trends. Respect. Ancient Japan. Possibly the most disciplined fashion system in all of history.
In 283 AD, two women traveled from Korea to Japan specifically to teach silk weaving and brocade techniques. By 300 AD, emperors were wearing Chinese silk. Then Emperor Uriaku ordered a complete reform of dress for priests, military, civilians, and nobles, changing not just garments, but sleeve sizes, colors, and even hairstyles by rank. The kasane layered silk tunic, the hakama overskirt, the shitagutsu socks, the women's kimono, a loose gown with wide sleeves, a waist belt, and a decorative bow cushion at the back, wooden sandals with high backs, and the colors, every shade communicated your exact position in society. You could look at a Japanese noble and know instantly from the color of their sleeve alone exactly who they were and where they stood. No introduction needed. The outfit was the introduction.
So here we are. We've crossed 4,000 years of human history. We've seen sheep fur skirts and 5-meter togas. We've seen gold dust on skin and sandals too precious to walk in. We've seen divine white linen and color-coded silk sleeves and embroidery so detailed it took Persia to invent it and the Crusades to spread it. And here's the thing that nobody really talks about. Every single civilization we covered believed they were the most advanced, the most refined, the most fashionable. The Sumerian in his Kaunaki's skirt and moon earrings walked into court like he was untouchable. The Roman in his 5-meter toga that required a slave to put on felt like the pinnacle of civilization. The Egyptian, carrying their sandals to the destination to keep them clean, thought they had cracked the code on sensible living. And maybe they all did, in their own time, in their own world. Because fashion has never really been about fabric, it's been about identity. It's been about telling the world, without saying a single word, exactly who you are, where you belong, and how seriously you expect to be taken. That hasn't changed in 4,000 years. The sheep fur is gone. The gold dust is gone. The toga is, thankfully, gone. But the need to tell the world who you are through what you wear, that's eternal. Maybe we've evolved, or maybe we're just wearing better fabric while doing the exact same thing.
If you made it this far, you're the kind of person this channel exists for. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and drop in the comments which ancient civilization's fashion would you actually wear. Because personally, I'm considering the Persian Candace, embroidered silk, wide sleeves, gold dust optional. See you in the next one.